Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I'm going to say up front that tonight is probably going to be a bit of a short one. I feel like I've been talking all day long between readings, mentorings, and live video. It's been one of those days where I feel like I have not stopped talking since I woke up. And I'm getting slightly over it and ready to go like sit on the couch and be a vegetable. So today's probably going to be a little bit, I don't know why I'm shuffling these because truthfully, right, we need to find the cards that we're talking about. But, you know, there's nothing wrong with just playing a little bit before we get started. Well, I wanted to show you, because I am trying to kind of give different ideas on what to do with things. And I quite like this little spread. Let me grab. Okay, this is a pyramid spread. And I got this out of fortune telling using playing cards. And I believe I have a video of this as well. If it is something that you want to learn a little bit more, you can see the whole video on it. But I do quite like this as a little bit of a larger spread, but you know, a large spread, so to speak, with a in Lenormand is still quite a quick little spread, and that's something to remember because we're reading things kind of as sentences. And so I like this bottom row for that because it's a 5 card that you can read a little bit more like a sentence. And so what you would do here, okay, now this sounds like this is a difficult reading because there's 10 cards, but think about it. We do 9 cards all the time. So this is just one more card. And what I do with this is I actually do place the significator. And let me find her. Oh, I probably won't, there it is. You can either leave the significator in if there is a significant other involved. If there's not a significant other and you don't want to have that come up and kind of, depending on the question, whether or not that would be relevant or not, you could put that in or not. I'm going to go ahead and leave it in. So we would take the lady card, and this is going to be the center of our pyramid. Then we're going to throw cards around. I think even my hands are tired. We're just tired. We're ready to watch some TV. It happens sometimes, people. It happens. Sometimes you just roll out of bed and you don't stop moving. And tomorrow's going to be about the same, although not as much talking. I just have actual work to do. And yes, I hear my computer. So, okay, I feel good about that. I want to show you one other tip. Let me go turn that off. On my Facebook group, somebody asked a question with a poll of how many decks people had. And so, yeah, that's gotten quite, that's what beeping off is everybody's kind of saying how many decks they have. I have not gone through and counted mine, but I can make a pretty educated guess. Okay. So one other tip that I found, and I'm going to say that this is from the Mr. Andy book, but when you split the deck, so when you cut your deck, this is a deck that I'm going to draw off because normally I split the deck and then I draw off of this. If it's a grand tableau, that goes under it and I draw off of that. But before you combine them, if you turn them over and look at the bottom cards of the split, that can give you kind of an overall message, which we have the sun and the book. So we have happiness, right? What kind of happiness in knowledge? So there is a knowledge of happiness. Maybe in this particular spread, there's going to be a knowledge of happiness. Or it could be a secret and a happy secret. It could be those kinds of things. But that gives you sort of a little bit of a peek into the overall energy of the reading. I quite like this. I've been doing this with my Lenormand readings, and I really do quite enjoy it. So there's one little tip. And then you're going to lay your cards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we're going to move these down so we make sure we have room. I should have probably used one of my littler decks. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 at the top here. Okay? Okay, so here we have all of our cards. When we're looking at these, the bottom row are the 5 cards that tell of the past events which have led to my current present, right? Well, that's what past tends to do. The card on either side of me are most significant to me presently. These cards right here represent the choices that I may have to make. And the top one at the top represents an outcome if I don't do anything other than follow the line of least resistance. So not doing anything to change the flow, because I do believe obviously we all have choices in making a change if we want to. If we don't do anything to change things, this is where things are headed. Okay? So when we look to this bottom row, which is representing my past, this is very appropriate. Now you can read a 5 card sort of like a linear tale, right, leading together, right? So we have a person, a significant person in my life who brought a little bit of luck, a little bit of happiness. Wasn't anything horrible, but my inner self, there was something wrong with my inner self, and there was something, this hinges even on my sense of my inner sense of myself. And there was something wrong with the relationship, and that had a negative impact on my sense of self. And that's certainly the case, and that relationship's no longer here. So we'll just keep moving from that one. When we looked at the cards on either side of me, we can see that I have a message here. Well, what kind of message? A message about obstacles, which is quite interesting because this month is quite, I'm doing a lot of grief work, right? And so that also means that I'm talking a lot about grief work. I'm also talking with other people. I also do grief work or grief counseling with other people. And so that is certainly, I certainly have messages about obstacles for sure. In my own self, it's in terms of me being the writer, me giving the messages, which isn't a strictly perfect way to read these things. I just go with what I see. I don't worry too much about things. But this could also be a message that there's an obstacle coming, and that there's going to be some choices. So let's just read it traditionally, because there's other ways I might read this. But traditionally, I'm going to look at these 2 cards, which is there's a message. What kind of message? It's a message just about obstacles. Something is, but at least I'm getting a message about it, right? I'm kind of getting a forewarning that something is going to be difficult, and or the message that I'm getting itself is going to be difficult and is going to be have a bit of an obstacle. And then I have a choice about what I'm going to do. I can either follow the lines of communication with the birds, or I can go to the coffin side, which is being boxed in and endings, again, reading traditionally. That's probably not the direction that I really want to go in. I probably would go with communication, make a choice for communication. And if I don't do anything majorly out of what I'm going to currently do anyways, it's leading to the garden, which is kind of social things, which is actually for me a positive card to have above, because generally in these kinds of months, I withdraw and I kind of retract. And so being out and open socially, more so than normal, which I've already seen this month for me, is a good thing. It's actually a good way to go. So that's why I would actually read these a little bit more, I guess what people would say oracally, and be that I myself am working through messages about obstacles with other people, as well as what I'm learning. I am also sharing that message with other people, communicating that message out to the greater whole, and that in turn also makes me more open and being less closed off this month, even though it's generally a month in which I would be closed off. So that's kind of how I would read this, just, you know, really broadly, just so that you can get a feel for this particular card. So again, past issues that have contributing to this. 2 cards here that are quite significant to me. 2 choices here of which way to go with things. And then in the end, if I don't do anything to massively change the direction of things, this is looking at the outcome. So again, it's just one more card than a 9 card, but it's just a new way. So if you're kind of liking 9 cards, but want to try something a little bit different, this might be one that you would try. And I have seen this in more than one book, but I particularly found it from the Fortune Telling Using Playing Cards book by Jonathan D. So I thought I'd give you that, give that a gander for you. Now let's take a quick look at our questions, because my throat's getting so so we have got the whip and the bird. So here's the bird, so we'll keep that one out. I love this bird card. How gorgeous is that? And let's find the whip or the broom. I don't remember which one, this one or both. This is the whip. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. There we go. Okay, so here we have the whip and the bird card. And so the whip is thinking about disagreements and arguments and kind of repetitive. So somebody's stuck in a cycle of arguing. It can be quite painful. Mr. Lunar just opened a deck today with a whip that had like barbs on it. Like, we're talking about a dangerous and painful whip that was kind of like, ooh, that's a little harsh. I'm trying to find here. Oh, here we go. Trying to find my little book, because this is what these reason I'm using this is because these the 3 meanings are ones that are in that handout that I gave you. So we have for whip, repetitive, power struggle, argument. There's something about twice and 2. It can be 2 things, which I've never heard that before. That was in the Mr. Andy book. Also the idea of discord, which of course makes sense, right? So here we have that, but it can also just be repetitive, and that comes up quite a lot for me, this idea of something just being repetitive. That's why I do like to see like a whip and a broom, because obviously the whip talks a little bit more about discord and strife, and the broom has just got that idea of repetitive nature. So I do, you know, if in a perfect world in which I was making my own deck, it would have a whip and a broom on the picture. But, you know, I know what this means. So that's what we have there. For the bird card, we have verbal communication, gossip, pairs, and then it can also be stress and upsets. Traditionally, it means upset and stress when it's closer to the significator. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Generally, you can tell by the cards that are around it, depending on the question. I've always found that it seems quite clear when the bird is communication and when the bird is not great communication. When it's next to the whip, it probably is leaning more towards negative communication, but it can be repetitive communication, especially if you're talking about a job, looking for a job that has a broom and a whip next to it. Then you could be talking a lot more about something that is going to need ongoing and good verbal communication skills. So, as with anything, I will say this, over and over and over again, questions are imperative. When we come to even practice without any kind of question, it's really hard for you to get a comfortable feel for the card because you're trying to just randomly pull something into it when there's no question involved, and it could mean anything. So that's important to know. It can go the same way. Okay, well, we have communication. Well, what kind of communication? It's repetitive and or it's destructive. It's painful, destructive. It is discordant. So it's arguments, those kind of argumentative conversations. So this could be stuck in a repetitive cycle. What kind? Well, it's a verbal cycle that kind of stuck in. So, there's different ways. Basically, with these two, I would look at it as either destructive and discordant conversation, or fighting, arguing, that kind of thing, or repetitive communication, where if in the work environment, I would think of this a lot more along the lines of needing those skills to repeat yourself over and over again and to use your verbal communication skills over and over again. But in the question, because I really was quite random with these, not random, but I went with whatever was the first thing that came to my mind. And so for this one, what is a conversation that you feel is so important to get out into the world that you will put it on repeat? That's apparently what came straight to mind when I was making this particular sheet, which is okay. So, I feel like you guys have all, and that's why, luckily, because I'm kind of, tired and don't want to talk too much, I think you guys have all heard it. Grief work is something that's very important to me. It's been important to me even before Michael died, because dealing with difficulties, dealing with long-term loss, long-term difficulties, pain management, all the things, chronically ill, dealing with chronic ill things, dealing with long-term troubles, mental problems, depression, chronic illness, anything that is a long-term thing, dealing with that and helping people to deal with those kinds of things have been important to me since the day Michael was born, whether it was in support groups for parents with sick children, or all the way till now working with grief work. Those topics are very near and dear to me because I spent the formative part of my life, which is from the age of 20. Was I 20 or just 21? Did I just turn 21? I'm not going to do the math. I was 20 or 21. And so from that moment until myself at the grand old age of 47, these are issues that have been very impactful on my life and that I see there being a problem with, that I want to put a voice out there too, because I feel like it's so easy for people to see cheerleaders out there who are, I am going through these horrible things, but I'm persevering on. And there's these wonderful examples of people that are, examples of, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. That person's always happy. That person's always smiling. But then you're down in the gutter and you're crying and you can't get out of bed and you say, what's wrong with me that I can't deal with it in this manner? When very often the person who's out there looking like they have everything together is just really good at acting and is just saying all the right things. And so for me, a very important topic from day one on is being real, and being real with our feelings, and being real with when things are just really shitty and really hard to deal with, and being okay to say that this is really hard and I'm really struggling. And so giving a voice to what is the difficult side of life is important to me, and I guess that's why I'm really a swordsy person, because I think that conversation needs to be put on repeat, because so many people find themselves in difficult situations in which they feel like they have to fake their way through it. And it doesn't mean, and I have said this and over again throughout my life, it doesn't mean that I want to live in a world in which every time I come up to you at the grocery store and say, hi, how are you, that I want you to verbally throw up on me and tell me everything that's wrong. Like, there is a place for, polite conversation and politely asking somebody how they're doing. But when we have no space in which we can say exactly how we're feeling, where we can be honest that this is tough and that this is hard, that becomes isolating and destructive. And so I'm always been a proponent for speaking our truth when we want to speak it, and in appropriate ways, but that there has to be a place to speak our truth, or else the next person is going to look at us and say, this person's going through hell and they look like they have everything all together, like what's wrong with me because I cannot manage, versus somebody saying, you know what, yep, today I'm doing really good, but I have days in which I'm curled up on the floor and I can't get off the floor and I don't know what to do, and all I can do is call my daughter and just sob until she comes over and gets my sister and comes and save me, or where people are feeding me orange juice because they think I'm going to flip out at the after having the loss of my child. So you have to be able to say those bad moments as well as the moments that say, but I did get up off the floor, right? I had a cry and then I got up off the floor and I kept going. So you can be encouraging, but at the same time own the truth of difficult conversations and difficult topics. And so that's one of those things that I will never get tired of speaking about, because I think that it's important, and it's why I will ever be a proponent for the sword suit, because it's important to not wallow in the hard things, but acknowledge them so that we can help each other get through them, versus everybody pretending as if nothing's wrong. So there we have it. I'm going to cut it short because I'm tired of talking and my throat hurts, and I'm going to go watch TV. But that's the kind of conversation that I would have on repeat, as well as just respect. For me, the world is a easier and better place if everybody is respecting everybody else's choices. Not choices that are harmful to others, but personal choices. If everybody is respecting their own boundaries and respecting other people's rights to believe and act and be who they are, it's always going to come from a better place. So those two things are the things that I would put on repeat and talk about constantly. So there we have it. Everybody have a good night, and I will talk to you tomorrow.